Brilliant. So we're going to have a look at how a friends group can help, help our churches, and see the real benefits of them in supporting the work that goes on at the churches. So what we're going to cover is we're going to have a look at why would you even consider setting up a friends group, a bit about friends groups, some good news stories, how we set up a friends group, and then we'll have a look at some questions at the end. So the first thing is, why are we even considering setting up a friends group? Because I think we need to ask ourselves that question. And some things that come up really are other questions that we may have asked ourselves in the past is, how on earth are we going to keep this church going? We're spending way too much time on fabric matters. We need some fresh blood. And actually, wouldn't a friends group really free up the parish officers, the incumbent, and various others to concentrate on mission and ministry of the church? So if you've ever had any of those thoughts, really, this is why we need to consider setting up a friends group. Because if it's done right, a friends group can only benefit and help the work of your church. And also, it can really raise the profile of a church because you're bringing a potentially a different group of people in, a group of people who, we don't know what their contacts are. And actually, they bring other people in and raise the profile of the church. Because if we consider what the main responsibilities of a PCC are, they would be ministry, so that would be looking after the congregation and the services, mission, outreach into the community and beyond, maintenance, so that would be church hall and church grounds, and money. These are the main responsibilities of a PCC. And that's enough to keep anyone busy. Do you know what I mean? These are, all jobs that need to be done well. And if you're a member of PCC, what 3 things would make the greatest difference to you in order to be able to carry out those responsibilities that we just looked at? What would help? What would really help you to be able to do that? And the first thing would be, I'm sure, more volunteers. We always want more volunteers, don't we? Because what more volunteers bring as well is they bring a different set of skills potentially into the church. More income would obviously be a huge benefit to the church. And that could be through giving or it could be through grants, but more income is something that we definitely would all like to see. And what about the improved repair and maintenance of the church, to make the church building fit for purpose, but also to make it fit for a wider usage? Maybe even you would think maybe to make it more welcoming. So these are improvements that can be, if most PCCs could choose, this would be something they would love to see. Well, what a friends group then is, it's going to offer you some of these things, because what a friends group will offer is more people, and it offers different people, and not necessarily churchgoers, but people, heritage people, or people interested in the heritage of the church, or just people who are community minded that are not at this moment in time inclined to come and worship in your church, but actually they've got a great interest in the church. So it's more people, and it's different people with different perspectives. What a friends group offers you as well is more fundraising, because there are more people then able to do fundraising for you. And often, and I think Ian will attest to this later as well, is that the friends groups that work well to me as well are like given a really great job by the PCC. The PCC might say to them, we would love you to raise funds for X. And the friends group can go off and do that for you. Or the friends group might come to the PCC and say, we would like to raise money for. I mean, it's just great. It's just more people, more fundraising. And also what it offers is more time. So it might offer the PCC, incumbent, and anyone else associated with the work of the church more time to get on and do, if you like, the mission and ministry side of things, because they've got this wonderful group of people who are supporting them with the building and the heritage and the fundraising. So it potentially gives you more time. Also, we've said before, having a friends group will bring more skills into the church sort of network of people. Because, again, we've said that these people may not necessarily want to have anything to do with the church as far as worshipping there, but actually the wealth of skills that some of these friends will bring is just you could get accountant, doctors, economists, landscapers. I mean, just anything, couldn't you? With these, so it's a whole set of new skills potentially that these friends group bring, and subsequently, then they offer you more support. And I know, from talking to incumbents and from PCCs, that sometimes both and or those jobs can seem quite lonely and quite like an uphill struggle. Some PCCs are very small, or have an older sort of range of people in there, and actually these people could feel like they're very alone. And I know, incumbents feel that as well sometimes. So actually having more people to support the work of the church is a huge advantage to everyone. And I put more love there because I genuinely do believe that, the more people involved in our churches, be it worshipping there or be it on a very practical level, there's just more love around that church and what is happening at that church. And I think that's hugely important. And a fresh perspective. We're all get stuck in our ways. We know that. We all do, however old we are. We get stuck in our ways and we do things the same way because, well, that's how we've always done it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But actually, sometimes a fresh perspective is what we need. And actually, someone asking a question of, wonder if we should try this, or why do we do it that way? Is actually really good to have a fresh perspective on things. So that's really important as well. So who might these friends be? So we sort of talked around that a bit, but these will be people involved in your community who may not be religious at all, but they just want to get involved. They may have a great love of heritage, or they're just community focused and they really, really just want to get involved in the work of the church. And also, these friends are a group that is focused on the upkeep and conservation of the building. So they come with a heritage perspective, which I think is really important. Again, I mean, we all love our a lot of medieval, a lot of these buildings that we're worshipping in are hundreds and hundreds of years old. And we almost, because we go there all the time, we can sort of get a bit, not blasé, but a bit just sort of comfortable with it. And actually, other people who come in will be maybe sometimes more excited about the building we're worshipping in because of that heritage perspective. So these friends might be people who are happy to fundraise. I mean, there might be donors. I mean, you might live in a village or a town where you have someone who almost wants to be like a patron, if you like, or just wants to really support the church financially, but they don't worship there. Then, we need to welcome that with open arms. And people in the community who engage in community work. There's a lovely crossover in some friends groups with people from the church, people in the community, and people who are also already working in the community that then bring that perspective into the church. And then the church takes their perspective out into the community. That's really important. And what about people who come and visit, who visit and just, fall in love with your church, for example, and just really want to stay in touch and want to feel like they're part of it? Maybe they have a relative who's buried in the graveyard. Maybe they had a relative who was married there. Maybe they were married there. Maybe their children were christened there, baptized there. But they want to have a contact with the church, but they're not able or don't want to come and worship there every week. Why not make them a friend? And actually it gives them some ownership. And I think that's really important going forward with our churches. So a friends group, just a few examples of some friends groups. So it can be small or large. I've met some friends group that just got 2 or 3 people, or maybe not 2, but 3 or 4 people in. Another friends group, again, I'll give you little figures later on, and Ian will talk about his friends group. They can be local or wider membership. Some of the friends groups from some of the churches we'll example of in a minute, they're international members. So they've either been over here and visited and said, I want to stay in touch with the church, or actually they found the church on the internet, for example, on a Church Near You page, because they were doing their family tree or looking into their ancestry. And actually they want to be part of that church. So that's really important, that we let those people do that, really. Just one thing I just wanted to put in here, just as a caveat, really, is that friends groups can't apply for faculties, because they are not the legal entity that sort of owns the church, if you like. The PCC are the only people that can do that. I think that's important, because there are, people get worried about friends group, and if they go off on a tangent and do all sorts of crazy stuff. So I just wanted to say to you that that's really important, that we know that. So I've got a few examples of some friends groups here just to show you. So I just wanted to tell you a bit about St Michael's in Beccles. So St Michael's in Beccles, their friends group, is probably only about 12 to 15 people, but over the last 7 or so years, they've raised, over £250,000 for the church through various projects that they've done. They are associated with the PCC. They have crossover members, PCC members, and members in the friends group, and it works really well. And this is a recent picture of the friends group working with the church. The friends group were given, really, if you like, the task of St Michael's in Beccles and the wider community, St Luke's as well, to raise money for a new minibus, which is used to pick up disabled and elderly people and take them to lunches at St Luke's Church and St Michael's. And it had to be quite a specialised minibus as well, really, because it had to have a ramp and stuff. So, it was nearly £70,000 for the minibus. And that's the picture there of Archdeacon Rich, who went and blessed and commissioned the minibus. So that happened in the last few months. But the friends group were the people that did most of the fundraising for that new venture there. Oh, hang on, it's coming. Yes, Holy Trinity Blytheborough. I just wanted to mention to you, and I remember when I delivered this session before, I think it was our Generous Church conference, that someone said, not all of us have got angels in the roof of our church, and we know Blytheborough has the angels on the beams of the church. You don't need angels on your beams to have a good friends group. I'm just wanted to tell you that. But Holy Trinity Blytheborough have about 67 members in their friends group, and they are international. So they have friends in Canada and America, and they have again, you can run your friends group how you want, really, but they have an annual subscription for the friends, which I think is only about £20. And for that, the friends get a newsletter a couple of times a year, and they get involved. So meetings now, aren't we fortunate that meetings can be like this, virtual, so that we could, if someone wanted to join us from America today, they could, or Canada, or wherever. So but they have international members of their friends group, because these people have been over, fallen in love, and wanted to stay in touch. And so to give them some ownership, Blytheborough invited them to be friends of in their friends group, which is really important. St Mary's Wortham, again, just a lovely group of people. None of them actually worship at the church. When I met with them a few months ago, none of them currently worship at the church, but they love Wortham Church, and they set up a friends group. Wortham Church has got a round sort of tower that's sort of half demolished, and it's got a huge cultural and historical value, and they formed a friends group to raise the money to rebuild the tower at Wortham. Wonderful group of people, but they don't worship at the church, but they're invested in the church in their community. And St Peter's Leamington, and I'm going to let Ian tell you all about this later on, forgive me, and I keep mentioning you, but I will let you speak at the end. Ian will tell you about Leamington and the number of people that they've got in their friends group and the impacts that friends group has on their community. So I'll let you speak to Ian about that later. These are really good examples of friends group who are doing exactly what we've said earlier on in the presentation. They're being supportive, they're bringing skills, they're bringing fundraising, they're bringing love, they're bringing the community into the church, and it's really, really important. There are different ways of setting up a friends group. The diocesan recommendation is that it is a subcommittee of the PCC rather than a separate entity. But again, this is all, that's only really because, there have been some horror stories. I remember seeing, and you may have heard some horror stories, and I want to admit that there are some examples where the friends group have not worked so well. Often it's because they are completely separate entities to the PCC, but I can remember not long ago, a lady from a church in our diocese coming to me. I was helping them with grant support and writing grants from the grant strategy for them. And she was in absolute tears when she told me that she'd had to go cap in hand to the Friends group to ask them for some money towards something they needed in the church. And the Friends group said, we will consider it, and had taken it away. I mean, and the woman was really quite upset and in tears in front of me saying, I don't know what to do. You know, the group, they're called the Friends of the church, but they actually, you know, it feels like we have to beg them for money. So, you know, there will be some stories you've heard like that, but let me just reassure you, and Ian will later as well, the Friends groups are worth their weight in gold. And if they're run properly and you know, managed properly, they are such a blessing to the church. As always, the PCC are always going to be the best people to know what funds are needed and what they need to be spent on. And I think if the relationship between the PCC and the Friends group is there's this cross collaboration, that the PCC can go to the Friends groups and the Friends group can go to the PCC and make suggestions. And actually, it's collaboration. That's the key to that, really. But it is always the PCC as the legal entity of the church that are going to be best placed with the incumbent to know what's best to spend the money on. And I think as long as you agree a framework so that everyone is working towards the church's vision, and again, that's really important. You know, we need to share with these people that are working with us, this is our vision. You know, we want you to be on board with our vision, how you can help us with our vision, because, you know, we prayerfully would believe that that vision for that church, you know, is what God wants for that church to do. So we need them to be on board. There are lots of resources available from us, the parish resources team, the website, and Insights all have information. At the end of this presentation, there's some links as well, which when you get it, you can just click on the links and it will take you through to all the information there. But the Friends groups are hugely beneficial to the church when they're run properly. There's a whole wealth of resources. I know that looks like a complicated slide, but there's some really good nationally produced documents and other dioceses that have produced really good documentation and information on Friends groups. So some of these links are going to take you through to a PDF, you know, a booklet, short booklet, which will tell you all about Friends groups. The National Churches Trust has loads of information on Friends groups and is a huge supporter of Friends groups and how they can support the churches. And then, as I said, a couple of dioceses there that have written some really good information. And then that's the link to our resources, our diocese website, link to the resources that can be made available for you. But there's lots of resources out there. So we're going to stop there and see if there are any questions, if anyone wanted to ask any questions. But I would like Ian just to say a few words first, really, if that's okay. Ian, are you happy to say a few words and then we'll sort of take questions between us? Is that all right?
Absolutely fine. I'm passionate about Friends groups and am prepared to help any group that needs help. I talk to either deanery synods or benefices, multi-parish benefices, or I'll happily talk to PCCs. Or if you feel that you're beyond that and you actually want the details of how you're going to do it in your church, I've got some people coming from Coombs Church on Monday this next week to talk about how they will progress, having just launched their Friends group. I am part of the resources and very happy to help in whatever way is appropriate.
Ian, tell us how many friends you've got in your Friends group.
Well, I'm not quite sure because I've spent the whole morning trying to upgrade my GDPR paperwork, and we have about 30 on the what's it called, the roll for the church, but we've got between 150 and 200 friends of, and you doesn't cost you a penny to be a friend. We don't have a subscription. We took that decision early on. But anybody who shows any interest in the church is immediately made a friend. and it means that they get all the publicity which goes out from the church, which is relevant to Friends, and it's a way of keeping in touch with people on a continuous basis.
I'm just going to say, for those that joined after the presentation has started, you will get the slides. So please don't think you've missed anything. I will send the slides out to you all, and all the resources will be made available. So please don't be concerned about that. But yeah, has anyone got any? I mean, I would just reiterate what Ian said, is that, apart from Ian, who's a huge resource to the diocese, is that happily would come out and speak to PCCs and synods about the benefits of Friends. It falls under the parish resources remit of building a culture of generosity in our churches. So absolutely, these people that want to be Friends, they want to be generous with their time, they want to be generous with their skills and generous with their talent for the benefit of our churches, and I think that's huge, and we should definitely let them do that and be part of it. So there's honestly, from, as Ian said as well, we're more than happy to come out and talk. There's some information, say, on the website, but I would happily have a individual Zoom call with people, or we could create some bespoke literature if needed. That's all a possibility, really. Are you thinking of creating Friends groups, some of you? Is that why you're here, or you just wanted a general info? Anyone?
I think we've got a very so I'm All Saints Kesgrave, Emma. I think we might have a very old Friends group, but I don't know what it's doing, if you see what I mean. So
right,
I was going to come to this meeting first, and then find out if there's any life at all in the Friends group. In one of the horror stories, do you have to be a bit careful about repairs, like on a listed building, if they're enthusiastically doing something?
Yes, I mean, obviously, anything that happens to the building, Sally, the PCC has got to be involved in that, and obviously an incumbent, because the PCC are the legal entity that are responsible for the building, which is why they're the people normally that obviously would be putting in faculties and things like that. But you're right, it's got to be done. And I didn't tell that horror story, to put you off. I told it because it's a real incident, and I think often people are worried about Friends groups because they think that happens a lot, and it doesn't happen a lot, because most of the time the Friends groups are this huge benefit and blessing to the church, and so I think that's really important that we embrace that. Alison, sorry, just to say, I know you've come in. I will send all the resources out, Alison, so please don't feel you've missed anything. Okay, good. Sorry, does anyone else want to say anything?
Yeah, Emma, do we need the agreement of our incumbent to set up one, or not? Well,
I think the agreement of an incumbent is always a good thing. And I think to do this outside of the knowledge, if you like, or scope of a vicar would not be a good thing. I think absolutely, because the other thing is, you want the vicar up the front, talking to whoever's in the church about the Friends group. So absolutely, the vicar needs to be on board. Yes, I would agree. Peter.
Oh, we lost you for a moment there.
Oh, sorry. I think Peter put his hand up.
It's just that ours was approached with a document back six or so months ago, and no response whatsoever, which was a bit disappointing. Obviously very busy, but so a bit concerned as to whether we can go ahead and try to get something going. And we know all about it has to be through the PCC and such like, but
I think it might be worth going back to the vicar and asking if they have any concerns about the Friends group then, because it might just be yes, it's got lost in their busyness. But I think I would definitely go back before I went ahead and just say, did you have any reservations before we go ahead? But we want to go ahead. Are you okay with it? It can be a positive approach to the vicar, I would say.
Thank you.
Peter, you had your hand up. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I'm interested to know really sort of how different groups have got started. I mean, we're coming from the perspective of a parish church which is part of the Beccles group, actually. So we're aware of the of what goes on in the main church. But All Saints Worlingham is a village church which now has a very limited congregation, and we are interested in trying to improve things in general, but in particular to do some reordering of the building in order to make it more accessible and to put a toilet in and that sort of. Listening to you, it seems to be that there are different types of friends groups, those that are sort of groups of people that actually sort of actively go about getting funding and so on, but also sort of more passive ones where people are just associated with the church and give money. So I'm interested to know really sort of how did you get going from sort of from ground zero?
Okay, well, just so you know, there's lots of resources on the website about how to do that. But I wonder if Ian might take that. Ian, what do you find? You talk to people a lot about Friends Group. How do they sort of get started?
I inherited a group some 12, 13 years ago, and there is a constitution to the Friends Group, part of which comes. Part of the people are voted in by the PCC and part from the village. And in theory, the PCC has a controlling interest, but in fact, there has not been any conflict between the requirements of the PCC and the Friends Group. The latter has been supportive. And I would suggest that you need, because you have not got very many members as you launch and you haven't got very much money, that you need to have projects which can be achieved by the people that you do have. The churchyard is the obvious one, and you will build up your local supporters. I have got one at 2 o'clock coming to mow this afternoon, and he's one of almost 40 mowers that I have who come twice a year and keep the churchyard looking half decent. That sort of thing is easily achieved early on, but if I could be of any help to you in a practical terms, I'd be very happy to come to your parish, or you could come and look at mine and see what we're doing in order to see what can be achieved. It will not happen on day one. It takes a long time to build up the goodwill from the people who are not part of your congregation, and they want to see a little success and then some more success, and eventually I can give you an example of what we have done here is that we use the Friends at Christmas time to collect money for the Salvation Army. And we're only a small village, but we send the Salvation Army £5,000 a year, which we have built up over the years, able to do mission as well as ministry.
I think as well, Peter, what I would say is that the when you get the slides, the resources on that slide that you can just click on, they're really helpful at that. And the Diocesan and how to set up and how to start is really useful as well. And
I think it's about recruitment as much as anything. I mean, and it is actually sort of it's really good to sort of hear shared experiences rather than necessarily to read stuff, you know. So that's really why I'm asking the
brilliant. No, absolutely. And again, the other thing is, Peter, two things. With Ian's permission, I will add Ian's email to the when I send the slides out to you. And secondly, I can also give you some other friends groups to contact, you know, so that you can actually have that direct, you know, conversation with people as well, because there is a lot of info out there, and it's so different for each church. This is the other thing, is that there might be, you know, a general set of guidelines, but then how that friends group runs, and how it's very bespoke to the church and to the needs of that church. So you can make it your own. I mean, it might be that I'm in North Cove on Monday, by the way. Just reminded me, you're out. Is that where you out that way? Is that where I'm going? Thinking of Whirlingham out that way? No.
That's part of our parish.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
So whether you did almost
yes,
a benefit,
yes,
you could do a benefits friends group, for example. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having, so it widens it maybe and includes more churches. I mean, that's just a suggestion, but have a think about that. We can talk about that one-on-one as well if you want to. Alison.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, sorry I was late joining,
right.
and I'm sat in the car, so hence my phone camera's not on. FJ can't get his microphone to work, and he wants to know why go to the trouble of setting up a constitution when we've established a subcommittee of our PCC for our churchyard project.
Yes. So, sorry, Ian. Yes, go ahead, please.
I think the great thing is that you are trying to recruit the people who are not in your congregation. And to do that, you must create a distinction between your PCC and your friends. And that, I suggest to you, comes in two ways. One, a separate bank account. Make sure that the people who are giving money to the friends for specific projects know that 100% of that money will go on that project and will not get siphoned into paying parish share. So that is very important, and all friends group have found that that is very important. I would also say that the widening of the group comes from one success leading to another. If you can improve, the churchyard people will say, gosh, look what the friends have achieved. And it isn't the PCC, and the PCC actually has got to let go and say that's your responsibility. And once you are on this bandwagon, it's self-fueling thereafter.
I think it's just to cover everyone. Do you know what I mean? And just make sure everyone knows what they're doing and why they're doing it. Okay. I think it's really sensible. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.